I could not be more excited about today's guest. I've got Geoff, the creative force behind the woodworking and furniture designs of YellowFox Designs. So sit back, make yourself comfortable, and let's talk shop. Thanks so much for being here, Geoff.
I am extremely excited to be on set with you guys.
So before we get to know you a little bit better, can you tell me about the name YellowFox Designs and how that came about?
It's actually kind of funny. When I first started the Instagram stuff, my wife's like, hey, post that picture, that new entertainment center you built. But I didn't want to just be like Geoff's Designs or something cliche like that.
Right.
So I'm sitting there, and my dog is next to me, and I have a Jack Russell Border Collie, and I'm sitting there, I'm petting her. I feel like Dr. Evil petting the cat, but I'm like, I'm petting my dog and yeah, throwing a finger like that. But I'm sitting there and I looked at her and her ears stick like straight up in the air like that. I'm like, you look like a little fox. And I was just sitting there, I'm like, oh, Fox Design, that sounds kind of cool. But it was still missing some element to it to kind of separate it, because it's like anybody can just say, okay, Fox Designs and be done. So I thought, you know what, I like the color yellow. So I just said Yellow Fox in front of it, and YellowFox Designs kind of was born, and just because of my dog.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
So how did you really get your start? And I understand you grew up around tools at a very young age.
I did. My dad worked for a tool company for way back in the day, and my mom was an interior decorator and designer. So I always had that kind of, I like to say I was like bred for it. That I was always in my life. Power tools always there. I was always around some form of wood or building or remodeling. But it was funny growing up younger. I'd be in the basement, and I'd take like two 2x4s, nail them together, and be like, Mom, I made you this. And of course, knowing my mom, she probably still has that thing. But,
right.
But it just kind of, I grew up always creating things. And as I got into high school, I was very fortunate to go to a high school that had a wood shop in it. And I learned a lot of stuff there. And having that resource just there is amazing. I wish we had that more in schools. But as I grew up, I kind of fell out of it for a while. But it was about probably a year and a half ago, I really got back into it because I missed that passion to create and build things. And I'd got a house, and I was like, well, I don't want to go buy furniture. So I started building my own furniture for the house, and it just kind of expanded and obviously got to where it is today.
That's really cool. So one of the questions that we always like to ask is really what makes you tick?
I have no idea.
No idea?
No idea. My brain doesn't shut off a lot. I love the design and inspiration you see a lot of times, but there's one designer that I've talked about before, is Carroll Shelby. He developed one of the most symbolic cars that ever hit the road. And one thing I always learned from him was to always write everything down, like put it in a notebook. So in my shop, my man cave, and next to my bed, I've got notebooks that I just put ideas in, even if it's just like table made from blah, blah, blah. That's it. And I've got it in my phone. I've got design ideas that are in my phone. I'll just like put 10-word sentences in there, just enough to trigger me back to go back to that, oh, I remember when I came up with that idea. But I do that a lot when it comes down to design aspects of furniture. And some of those ideas could take years to come to fruition, that I might not have the right customer, I might not have the right space for it, but I'll save them. But what really kind of, I don't know, makes me tick, it's, I guess, the element of really just doing what comes just out of nowhere and just having fun with it. That's the biggest thing.
So would you say these books that you randomly keep around are leather bound?
No, but they do smell like rich mahogany.
I was hoping you would say that. I was hoping you'd say that.
No, they're just like, I mean, like little yellow notepads and stuff. I mean, sometimes I just like take off a scrap piece of paper and I'll like take the staple gun and staple it to the shop wall. I mean, it's
very
not,
simple.
It doesn't have to be. I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, if I had a nice leather-bound journal and a little dog named Baxter, that'd be awesome. But
I'm gonna write that down.
You are?
Yeah.
Are you gonna send me a little dog?
You might see something like that on Christmas.
We do want another dog. I'll have to create like purple fox designs.
I just logged a mental note. That's awesome.
No, but it's one of those things that I always like to be writing things down, because I do get inspired. I mean, I could be driving down the road and all of a sudden see something that might say, oh, what if you use that element or that material? Let's integrate metal into this and take two different ideas and slamming them together. And
Now, you had mentioned when we were talking a little while ago, that you love to listen to music as you're working.
Yeah.
Can you talk about that a little bit?
I do. I've got one of those little RIDGID radios in my shop.
Yep.
Plug the battery. Of course, I always had to put like the 4 amp hour or bigger battery in there because I crank it all the way up.
Yep.
But yeah, I like to jam out when I go in the shop. I mean, some people like peace and quiet. Some people like podcasts. Some people just like to hear the saw run. I like to hear Metallica.
Now you got to be careful with what type of music, at least I've found, that you're listening to, because if you get too fired up, you get too pumped up, next thing you know, your cuts are not straight.
They're not that bad. I'll be jamming along to some like metal, and all of a sudden I'll be like sanding. I'll be like, like jamming into it. I'm like, it's okay, it's rustic furniture. Stay on high.
It's like I just put a divot in it.
It's like a swirl mark. It's like it was meant to be there.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite project?
The one I did with plywood end grain on the coffee table. I like that because it was just, nobody was doing that. It was just something, the whole thing started, I did this thing with plywood. I created almost like a parquet out of it. And it created a bunch of these little squares, and it was really unique looking. I was looking at it one day, I was like, I can make an entire table out of this. And as I got into it, it kind of evolved. I was originally gonna make the whole top out of these little tiny squares, and I'm thinking, well, that's gonna make 7 million cuts. I'm not doing that. But as I stacked all these pieces together and just flipped them on its side, it just gave a completely unique look. And what made it even crazier is there's not a single screw or nail or any sort of basic joinery holding it together. It's just held together with just glue, which is extremely strong. But I really, really like that piece. That actually is one I won't get rid of. I like that piece a lot.
What would you say is the #1 reason you chose to start using RIDGID tools and continue to use them over some of the other brands out there?
I think the biggest thing boils down to is quality. At the end of the day, I want a tool that when I pick it up, I want it to feel like it's not going to fall apart in my hand. I want it to feel like this tool was built to be put to the test. And for a company that has their lifetime service agreement, their LSA, they're going to build it right the first time because they know this tool is going to be around for a long time and get put up with a lot of abuse. But for a company to stand behind it and say, hey, things happen, we're going to take care of you with that lifetime service agreement is absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah, and that's what keeps our initial customers coming back, and it's kind of like being part of a family, really. It's like we don't want to turn our back on you if something does happen. Hey, you know what?
And that's one of the reasons I keep on buying more and more of them. I mean, my shop is not orange by accident. It's got so many of those tools in that I keep on going and getting because they really are that good, and they're going to hold up to what I put them through. Like a lot of times, if I cut through some 100 to 125-year-old oak, that stuff's rock hard.
Yeah, that's hard on a tool.
Yeah, but the tool just says, okay, what next?
Yep.
And that's pretty awesome.
Would you say you have a favorite tool in your arsenal?
I got 2 actually.
Okay.
And they're 2 I use on actually 3. I like all of them, but I use a couple tools in every single project. One is my 12-inch sliding miter. I love that. It's got that huge 70-degree miter because on some of my designs, I get in some weird, funky angles.
Sure.
So it has that ability to go all the way to 70 degrees and cut, but also having a huge 12-inch blade on it, I cut through larger stock. If you get into some like 4x6s and stuff like that, you can actually get through it. My orbital sander, little 5-inch cordless sander.
Oh yeah.
I literally use that on every project. Pop a large like 4 or 5 amp hour battery in there and just sand for hours.
Yep.
And it runs great. The last one is probably my table saw.
Yeah.
I have
You have the big cast
I have the big
iron?
cast iron
Yeah.
one. It is a fantastic saw
Yeah.
though, but it's got that awesome system, the caster system. So when you
with the
actually
foot
lift
pedal,
it up, it weighs nothing
can
when you
scoot
do
it all
that.
around your shop.
But yeah, that is a fantastic saw. I put that thing through the paces, and you can't. It's unmatched. I mean, for the bang for the buck, it's the best saw.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more.
Yeah.
When you're building a piece of furniture, you have someone particular in mind that you want to make it well, but not overly complicated so someone can't duplicate it? Or is that really the thought process you have as you're doing something?
No, I don't mind if somebody duplicates my stuff. I really don't. I don't have. For somebody to duplicate is an extreme compliment for me. To say, I love what you did, I'm going to rebuild that. I don't mind when people do that. I really don't. And the target audience that's there is whoever wants to pick up a hammer and a drill and build it. That's really what it is. That, like I said earlier, I didn't invent the wheel. I try to make that go faster is all I'm trying to do.
Yeah.
And for somebody to get inspired by what I do is a huge compliment. Like I said earlier, it's about having fun. And if you can enjoy building and creating, that's what it's all about.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And thank you so much for being here, Geoff. That's all the time we have today. Make sure you go check out his Instagram handle at YellowFox Designs. And until next time, that's Talk Shop.